Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge with your latest Manchester United news as we discuss a potential last 24-hour loan move for a French striker that's not Karim Benzema and is way more realistic. We'll also be talking about another French winger, 2 assists and a goal last night and a release clause around £50 million. Have United got to now be looking to move forward on this? We'll also be talking about the director of football. Rumours going round that Dan Ashworth is not as straightforward and may not be coming to Manchester United. They may have to look elsewhere. We'll look at where elsewhere would be. And I want to frame this as a poll. Hopefully we can get a poll put in the chat. I'm sure our admin can sort that out because I can't. Should have said that before. Who will last longer at Manchester United? Ten Hag or Marcus Rashford? As we approach a game against Wolves that I think actually I and most of you probably would agree, we've not probably taken on the enormity of what this game West Ham is and Aston Villa is, but certainly Wolves. We lose this game against Wolves and we're going to come back crashing to reality very, very, very quickly in the sense that if we lose to Wolves, that's 10 losses. We're probably below Wolves. We're mid-table. We're probably 11th. We're scroll down FC. Ineos are looking. I don't think it looks good for Ten Hag. So I think that this game against Wolves is far, far bigger than maybe we even realise because we've had a couple of weeks off since that Spurs game, which was a disappointing draw. Let's not forget, Spurs probably deserved to win that game. So lots to get involved in. Some people saying, why so early? Busy day in the studio. Lots of things we've got to sort out today. Some interesting stuff that you may benefit from in future days. But yeah, a very rare 9 o'clock show. But we have got the press conference reaction for you at lunchtime. Normal show at 7. And I'm doing Chelsea-Liverpool later on That's Football. So a normal day, just a little bit early today at 9 o'clock. So smash a like on the video. And nice to be in the studio as well. I don't get to be in here as much as I would like. So look, let's start off. I've got the live chat in front of me. Studio Bridge says David. No, I'm not going to say the word Trashford. I don't like it. But Shiro says Rashford will survive all managers. That poll is up and running. But let me give you the news and then we'll get into this whole Rashford, Ten Hag and enormity of the game against Wolves. Let's start off with this story that's coming out this morning around Hugo Ekitike, formerly of Reims, went to PSG, was actually linked to Manchester United. In fact, I was talking to Sam, who works for behind the scenes on Twitter and stuff like that, and he was saying my very first tweet for the United Stand, or sort of exclusive, was that Manchester United were interested in him and he wanted to come to Manchester United and was interested in that. Obviously, he's ended up going to PSG and it's not gone particularly well. So Fabrizio Romano is saying that this player is up for loan in the second half of the season. Well, this is a player that we were linked to when Ronaldo left, that summer that Ronaldo was going. This is a player that Ten Hag likes. And this is a player that realistically is not going to cost you anywhere near as much as something like a Benzema would. So is this a possibility in the next 24 hours? I think it could be a possibility for somebody. He was also, at the time he was linked to us, he was linked to Newcastle as well. So maybe keep an eye on Newcastle, maybe Chelsea. But PSG are looking to loan him out in the next 24 hours for the second part of the season. He is a striker. He is young. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we're not going to buy the striking solution to work with Rasmus in January in the next 24 hours. What we could do is something like we did last year, whereas we get somebody in on loan. Now, I don't want to go and get Weghorst, who's got no future. I think getting a younger striker in would be better than getting nothing in. Could Manchester United do that? They're still saying no, that they won't, but I still think that there might be something there to be done, especially with a player that ticks a lot of boxes. And you never know, PSG, let's start building that relationship with PSG. There might be some business to do in the summer. Who knows? Fabrizio clearly said there is no way that Ekitike will join, says Rashford out. And, well, that's not how I read it. That's not how I read it at all. I read it that PSG are looking to move him on in the second half of the season. And obviously Manchester United are looking at striking options on loan, and anything can happen in the last 24 hours. As I spoke about a couple of days ago, I remember going into the last day of the transfer window, we were getting Rondon, then we were getting Joshua King, and then we ended up with Ighalo. So anything can happen. Victor says, and it's a news show, so chill your boots. I remember when Sir Alex Ferguson was in charge, he wouldn't let things like what Rashford did slide. He's a distraction for the club and he doesn't deserve to be here, says Victor. Still talking about that. Mohammed says, any news on Benzema? Look, we spoke about Benzema yesterday, and I think that, look, it's very, very unlikely to happen because the Saudi League don't want to lose him. He's a major asset. It's not Jordan Henderson, so I don't think that will happen. And also, we've got FBI's talking about my haircut. Who in their free mind wants to join Man United when Ten Hag is coach, says Hemo. I'm getting the feeling that the morning show at 9 o'clock is, maybe we need to put it back to 10 o'clock. There's a few complete twats in the chat this morning. Maybe that's why we've never done a 9 o'clock show before. Anyway, I'll continue with the news. One player that's certainly on United's radar, but won't be in United's radar in January is Michael Olise. Now, what a game he had last night for Crystal Palace. 2 assists for Easy, and then a winner at 3-2, which was absolutely fantastic off his left foot. I think that this is a player that Manchester United are certainly looking at, but what caught my eye or ear on Monday when we were talking to Fabrizio was that we were talking about Michael Olise in the summer and the interest, and there's a few stories going around that he doesn't want to go to Chelsea, he wants to come to Manchester United. Apparently he's a lifelong Manchester United fan. He scored a goal against us last season. He didn't celebrate. When he scored against Man City, he was acting like he'd won the World Cup. Maybe there's something in that. Maybe it's a little bit like when somebody follows a Man United player on Instagram and we think we're signing them. But what fact remains is that this sort of a player surely ticks a lot of boxes for Ineos in the sense that he's young, he's Premier League proven. He's not British. He's actually French, but I think he's 22. And as Fabrizio said on Monday, that release clause is lower than £60 million, which really brings it more into the equation for me. I think when you're paying £60, £70 million for players like this, it becomes problematic. If that release clause is around £50 million, I think, we paid £50 million for Aaron Wan-Bissaka 4 years ago for a right back. I mean, what's happening to transfer fees? You assume that they're moving up. But actually, if you could sign Olise for £50 million, well, we paid £50 million for Wan-Bissaka. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting deal, and it's certainly one that, look, I don't think last night changes my opinion on Michael Olise. I still think he's a really good player. The big question for me about Olise, and I will keep saying it, Ryan Pitt says, is he homegrown? Well, I presume... Look, you could answer this question for me. Is he homegrown? I presume he is, because he's been at Crystal Palace for a long time, and he was on loan at Reading. He's in his early 20s. Garnacho's classed as homegrown because he will play 3 years in the Premier League before his 21st birthday, and that's what you need to do. So I'm pretty sure that Olise would be classed as homegrown. I don't know whether he's actually played any games for France, under 21s or whatever. I presume he could probably play for England. He was born in England, says Giovanni. So I don't know how that works. Talwu says he's actually Nigerian. The bottom line is he's homegrown. What nationality he plays for, I think, is somewhat irrelevant. I think we get locked into this Brexit, British, homegrown thing about they've got to have a British passport. You don't have to have a British passport. The big thing is to be homegrown. And as I say, Argentina. Garnacho plays for Argentina. He's a homegrown player, and he always will be. Ronaldo was a homegrown player, I believe, as well. That's how it works. Gaz says Olise could be done for £30 with Aaron Wan-Bissaka going the other way. I think he means 30 million would be a great deal. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not a big fan of swap deals, but you're right, that could happen. Jim and Simon paying you to go on an hour early, says Chops. And yeah, won't be clashing with them, yeah. It's only a one-off, trust me, I ain't doing a 9 o'clock show again. Olise was born in London, youth was Arsenal, Chelsea, City, Reading, so he's definitely homegrown. And but this is a player for the summer. And the great thing about Olise is that, yeah, he played well for Palace last night, but there's 4 more months for us to scout him. Some people have expressed concerns around injuries. My concern with Olise is attitude. That's the only thing. And I'll say it about De Ligt. I'll say it about Branthwaite, to be fair. My concern with any United player that we look at, unless I think they're shit, but if they're a good player, my concern is attitude. And I'm going to keep banging that drum, and I think Ineos will bang it as well. Attitude is going to be so important. Now, I've got no stories about Olise having a bad attitude. I think somebody from Reading, when he was there, said he had a bit of an attitude, but he would have been a teenager then. But we can't buy players anymore that have off-field priorities that aren't the same as what Manchester United need. In your off-field life, you've got to be focused, you've got to be professional, preferably have a very stable private life. Some people say, well, you're being private lifeist. Well, tough. Yeah, I am. I'm sorry, you can discriminate when you're buying footballers in that sense. You can't discriminate on where you're going to buy them from because they might play in the AFCON or something stupid like that. That's discrimination to a ridiculous level. Actually, you know what? What about Man City? No players playing in the Asia Cup, no players playing in the AFCON. Do you think that's coincidence or do you think it's by design? And is that clever? Is that clever to not buy players from those regions because you don't want to lose them for a whole month in January when you're playing a Premier League season? I don't know whether that's by design by Pep or whether it's coincidence, but I think you have to, in a footballing sense, discriminate in football because, and what I mean by that is, you know, you don't buy bad players, you buy good players. And off the field, if I know that there's a footballer that doesn't drink, doesn't party, you know, has got a very stable home life, you know, married with a couple of kids, you know, happy, I'm going to buy him over the person who's not in a relationship and likes to go out partying with his mates because, especially if they're very similar in ability, because attitude, mentality is becoming more and more prevalent in football. It is, you know, the stuff that players have to deal with off the pitch, the wealth, the brands, the social media. I think that the mentality side of football has become more prevalent. You know, I think back to the 90s, I think you could get away on pure talent. I mean, look, in the early 90s, you could get away with going down the pub with your mates 2 or 3 nights a week and still play for Manchester United. Trust me, you could. But when Wenger came in, it became about diets, professionalism. And now I think in football now, it is about the balance of, yeah, I'm a good footballer, but what am I doing off the pitch? You know, you look at someone like Scott McTominay, he's ripped, you know, obviously spends a lot of time on his fitness. You know, he's not having a kebab and a few pints of iron brew on a Thursday night, is he? He's clearly focused on sleep and you know, physicality and mentality. All right, he might not be there, he might be lacking on ability, but you can't fault what he does off the pitch. And I think that's what you have to do now. I think that's what you have to do. John says it's a coincidence with Man City because they have they had Mahrez. Yeah, but I tell you what, it's not a bad one to have, is it? So yeah, I think it's very, very difficult for anybody to say, let's go and sign Michael Olise because United are going to have to do the checks around that mentality. And it's a big step up to go from a Crystal Palace to a Manchester United, or a Dortmund to a Manchester United, or a Sporting Lisbon to a Manchester United. These are big steps. And I tell you what, the club that's done it very, very well, Liverpool. Alexis McAllister from Brighton, fits it like a glove. Mane from Southampton, fit it like a glove. Salah from Roma, fit it like a glove. Van Dijk from Southampton, fit it like a glove. Alisson from Roma, fit it like... I could have just said Salah and Alisson from Roma and Mane and Van Dijk from Southampton. But you know what I mean. I think Liverpool... I don't want to blow smoke up Pep's arse, he gets enough. But I think Liverpool, the way... And Liverpool are closer to us. They're our biggest rival. And their recruitment over the last few years has been elite. Players being married might not mean anything after what Walker did. Yes, Bags, you're absolutely correct. Just because somebody's married doesn't mean that they're in a stable relationship. My mate Dave is out every Friday night and he's getting up to all sorts. And hopefully I've just realised his wife's not watching. He's not really. He's round my house playing pool and watching old wrestling videos. Yeah, every Friday. Probably shouldn't have said that. But look, yeah, married people can be dirty. When I was at training college in my mid-20s, I wasn't married, but I was in a relationship, and it was you had to stay away Monday to Friday for 12 weeks, and there was a bar and everything like that. And I never dabbled anywhere. You know, I was very professional. But it was the married people who were the worst. It was like they were at Alton Towers. They were riding everything. So yeah, married people can be dirty. Anyway, I've just thrown Dave under the bus, so let's move on. But in relation to recruitment, we talk about Olise, we talk about other targets, and there will be other targets for Manchester United. And I'm going to get onto this Rashford, Ten Hag, who will last longer at United, and the amazing the enormity of this game we've got against Wolves, by the way, tomorrow night. But more news for you. So we talk about Olise, we talk about Ekitike, we talk about Benzema, whoever. Recruitment. recruitment, on short-term goals and long-term goals, and we're not going to buy Olise in the next 24 hours. That would be a summer signing. There may be some short-term signing that we should do. I thought Sabitzer ticked a lot of boxes last year, actually. I know it didn't work, but I think Sabitzer, he scored a couple of goals. It was an option from the bench. He started some games. I think those sort of things are quite good. Ashworth done now for us. Newcastle gave no depth, says Brendan. Spot on, Mark. With social media, a player's life off the pitch is only going to become more impactful each passing day. Well, I'm very pleased that somebody mentioned Ashworth there, because when it comes to recruitment, we were talking about this yesterday, the director of football is going to have a huge role at Manchester United. Now, there's rumours going around this morning that Ashworth deal is a concern. Dan Ashworth is believed to be Manchester United's #1 for the director of football / sporting director role. He has a relationship with Sir David Brailsford in a professional sense with Ineos, and they apparently want him as #1. There are concerns that this deal gets done. This morning, there are concerns that this deal gets done. What we're hearing is it's a very, very difficult deal to do, and Manchester United need a director of football in the next couple of weeks. They need him in the next couple of weeks, and they need him working on the summer. How can Manchester United extract Dan Ashworth from Newcastle, who are a direct rival of Manchester United, especially after that result last night? They look fantastic, and they're doing their own thing. They're trying to build their own thing. To extract Dan Ashworth from that and drop him into Manchester United in the next 2-3 weeks is looking increasingly difficult. And you can see why. You can see why, because he's he's not managing, but he's the director of football for Newcastle in the Premier League, who've just had a very, very difficult January transfer window. They've got huge amounts of money backing them, but they've got to figure out ways to make it work. They're a vibrant, energetic side. They were brilliant last night. It's an interesting project, and he's knee-deep in it. And Newcastle don't want him to go. So to extract him from that and put him into a Man United project where he's got to hit the ground running in the next 2 or 3 weeks is extremely difficult when Newcastle don't want it to happen. Man United do want it to happen. I think United can get Dan Ashworth in the summer if they really push it. But to get him out in the next couple of weeks when we need him, like, there's no point having Dan Ashworth come in June. Waste of time. We've got one of the biggest summers in probably 2 decades, and we need our director of football in by mid-February. So this is the problem that Man United have got. There's somebody they want, but extracting him from Newcastle, and let's be very clear here, we don't know what Dan Ashworth wants to do. We don't want to disrespect Newcastle here and say he wants to come United, they're holding him prisoner. They won't let it happen without, severe compensation and a big fight. And these things can take a lot of time, as we know. We've seen how long deals can take at Manchester United. So if you're a Dan Ashworth fan, and I think he would be a very good choice, it's looking increasingly difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. Feel Omar will choose his own director of football. I'd get Berta, says Ronnie. Well, I'm a big fan of Berta, but I don't know whether he's on the equation. Lucas says, I broke up with my fiance yesterday. Very sad today. Thanks to you at the United Stand for amazing videos and good talk. Let's get some love into the chat for Lucas. He certainly leads it. He's been dumped. He's broken up with his fiance, and he needs a bit of support. So I know the United. I'm not digging another hole. And big up Lucas. Let's give him some love in the chat. It will get better, bro, says VJ, who also says, if you fancy going to Nando's, I'll take you. He didn't, but I think he would. There we go. What else was going to say? One thing we know, Rashford. I'm not talking about that. Not talking about that. So yeah, if we don't go for Dan Ashworth, where are we likely to go? I think we're still very much looking at Paul Mitchell. Michael Edwards has been mentioned again. I thought he was out of the race. There's this guy called Ward, and I think that with regards to where Man United would go next, I personally think it's likely to be Paul Mitchell if we don't get Ashworth. So if you're just tuning in, it's looking difficult for Manchester United to get hold of Dan Ashworth this morning. Somebody just said, I'm looking at myself here, I'm very, very vain. Look at the camera, Goldbridge, look at the camera. There we go. Yeah, there's nothing wrong. I look actually very good. You've just got no class. Got no class. Anyway, looking dapper. Oscar, give him. If I had a membership, Oscar, I'd give it you. As simple as that. And if we were in a pub, I'd buy you pints. And if you don't like drinking, I'd get you a packet of crisps. I'll have a pint. But Son is in the chats. Marky, do you like Korean players? Well, I like you. I like Son. I'd love Son at United, but it's not going to happen. Ashworth, concern. Mitchell is where I think we should go next. He's got a thorough knowledge of the Premier League and the European game. Southampton, Spurs, Leipzig, Monaco, a rich tapestry of recruitment success, including Son, by the way. Amrabat sent off last night, terrible signing. Robert, do you want to come here to Manchester and present the show, or do you want to just spoil it with spoilers? We are going to talk about that though. So yeah, Mitchell is available. He's free. He's not under contract with anybody. He could start tomorrow. But of course, the thing with Mitchell is if he's the one, then you can do that deal very, very, very quickly. If you want Ashworth, they might have to wait. And I suppose that's the balancing act that Ineos have got, isn't it? Is that if they've been very, 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 very astute in getting Omar Barada in from Man City. I mean, that was a scoop and a half. You know, that to me, that's like pistachio and ice cream on a, you know, what a scoop. But it's a very difficult thing to get a director of football out in February from a rival who are a well-run club. And as I said, I think they could do it in the summer, but we can't wait till the summer. We need to get on to this ASAP. And I'm all for getting the right person, but we can't wait. Rashford plus 50 million for me. Get it done, says Son. Yeah, Spurs won't do that deal. They won't do that deal. But I can't overemphasise the enormity of making sure that we get the director of football in now. You know, some people would say, well, we may as well wait for Ashworth because he's better than Mitchell. I completely disagree. I think Ashworth coming in June compared to taking Mitchell in February is night and day. It's lasagna and a cold piece of chicken on the floor. It's chocolate mousse and shit. Like the contrast is very clear to me. What a director of football can do between February and May, between what a director of football can do coming in June, well, you may as well write the summer off. And we can't write the summer off. You know, it's not just about recruitment. It's about selling players as well. It's about new contracts. We've got players that have got 1 year left on their contract. We need a director of football. We've got players that we might need to sell in the summer. We need a director of football. We've got players we need to sign in the summer. We need a director of football. So I would definitely be looking at that, and we've got to get it done. The most important thing with the director of football is we've got to get it done in the next few weeks, and it looks very, very difficult to do Ashworth as of this morning. Hag and Rashford pistachio ice cream. Thank you very much for your super chat. Oh, they can. I forced that Pratt Levy to do it, says Son. I'd actually love it if this was the real Son in the chat, but it's not. So I've got to, you know, who would you prefer as director of football? Says Zero Connection. I actually have always liked Mitchell. I feel that Mitchell has become a little bit like Sir Jim. Remember that summer when we didn't know about Qatar and Sir Jim was linked to Man United and everyone wanted Sir Jim? And then they put United up for sale and we all wanted Ineos, or not Ineos, we all wanted Elon Musk or Amazon or Qatar. And Sir Jim was sort of like yesterday's news. And yet Sir Jim has got the job. I remember Paul Mitchell turning up to a game, I think it was an under-21s game, and sat with Ranić, and we were like, this is the dream team. And I still do think Paul Mitchell's very good at his job. I personally don't think there's a lot between Mitchell and Ashworth. I just think Ashworth has a little bit more recency around him. I mean, it's a little bit like so I'd be very happy with Paul Mitchell, yeah. But it's a little bit like, a few people are mentioning Kubo in the chat. If there's a story about Kubo, I'm happy to talk about it, but I'm not aware of it. But it's a bit like the manager situation, is it? I know we're going to talk about that in a moment, and the enormity of the game. And if we lose to Wolves, I think it's really bad news for Ten Hag. Brandon says, the fact that Kobe walked into the team is dangerous, shows that people can walk in with a bit of talent. We at Newcastle keep Hall out because of competition. Says Brendan. Well, Newcastle are in a much better place than Man United. I don't think any United fan is going to argue with you about that at all, Brendan. And Ali says, I've asked you about this before, Mark. My friend Jack keeps telling me he wants to do weird stuff yeah. We're not talking about that, Ali. It's a morning show. I'm interested in what Jack and your sister are doing. Yeah, not interested. Anyway, filth. But what I was going to say is that in the manager situation, I'll probably get into this a little bit more over the next couple of days, but all the Ten Hag outers, have we got any Ten Hag outers in the chat, by the way? Because I know people who'd sack Ten Hag tomorrow, but they don't have a fucking clue who they'd replace him with. And I know people who'd sack him in the summer, but they don't have a fucking clue who they'd replace him with. And if you say De Zerbi to me, get out of this chat, because I like De Zerbi, but what about De Zerbi makes you think he wouldn't be another Rangnick or Ten Hag at Man United? What about De Zerbi makes you think he wouldn't take a Man United side to Liverpool and get spanked 6-0? Like, he's just been spanked by Luton, and I know that's recency bias, but they have been spanked a few times. Everton at the end of last season. I think De Zerbi's a good coach, but actually, De Zerbi's CV at Brighton is nowhere near the CV that Ten Hag had at Ajax. So I think that when people are talking about sacking Ten Hag, please, for the love of God, have a decent, viable replacement that doesn't give me nightmares, because De Zerbi absolutely terrifies me. And Dan says, what about Alonso? Well, Alonso's going to go to Liverpool, mate. He's going to go to Liverpool, or he's going to go to Barcelona. Like, he's not going to take the Manchester United job. Never in a million years. So that's never going to happen. But it's an interesting point, isn't it? People want Ten Hag sacking, but I don't know anybody that's ever said anything viably respectable, in my opinion, that I've gone, yeah, that's an interesting one. De Zerbi would be out of the frying pan into the fire. Potter, I like the guy, but come on. Man United manager. Hansi Flick, just huge risk as well. Conrad's gifted 5 memberships. Thank you very much. And I double down on Ten Hag, give him the chance to work with what he's got, says Gaz. I completely agree with that. Let's give a bit of a shout out for the new members there. Absolutely fantastic. If you swap managers today, Erik Ten Hag would do worse with Brighton than De Zerbi would with Man United, says James Wilson. You're talking out your arse, James, and you flopped at United. You're bitter. Right, let me talk to you now about Amrabat before we go on to Ten Hag and Rashford. So the latest situation with Amrabat is that he was playing last night for Morocco in the AFCON. They lost. They missed the penalty, and he got sent off. This is a guy that's going to be coming back to Manchester, not with the buzz of winning the AFCON, which maybe hoped, maybe we'd get something out of him over the next few months. He's going to be coming back very, very disappointed to a United side that doesn't actually have a place for him at the moment. I mean, I look at Amrabat and I think it's not a question of whether he'll get any game time. It's a question of whether he'll get any bench time. Remember, we're not in Europe now. The FA Cup is about to get very serious for us. I mean, it's very serious anyway, but we're not playing Wigan or Newport. We're going to be playing probably Forest, if not Bristol, and then you're into the quarterfinals. We haven't got any games now where we can go to Amrabat, have half an hour. So how big a mistake is this Amrabat deal going to come? Or is there a possibility that he comes back and rejuvenates this loan deal? I mean, I don't think so. I do think, I have been consistent about Amrabat. I do think that there are a lot of things that we contributed to making this be a failure. I think when you bring a player in at the end of August, then they completely miss pre-season and the start of a season and they're in a new league, that's not ideal. He's had a couple of injuries. I thought he did quite well against Bayern Munich in the Champions League game, Old Trafford. I thought he did quite well against Liverpool when he played with Mainu, but then he's not really played since. I think it's been so sporadically stuttering and stop-start that it's almost been, the writing's been on the wall for anybody with any genuine insight, probably from the day that we signed him. I think the only rescue point here is that we didn't have the money to make it permanent, because we definitely wanted to make it permanent. This was a deal that we wanted to do weeks before we did it. We just couldn't raise 25 million quid. So we ended up spending 10 on the loan. I think we will kill this deal. I think we will send him back in the summer. But the question is, can we utilise Amrabat over the next few weeks and months? I don't really think we've been fair to Amrabat, like I say. I think if you gave him what we've done to Garnacho, what we previously did to Fred, if you could give him 5-6 Premier League games in a row and be patient with him, potentially he could adapt to the Premier League, but we're never going to be able to give him that opportunity. We never, ever have. People want instantaneous results. People want players to hit the ground running and just be ready. And that's not how it works, at least 50% of the time. You have to put these players in and give them a surrounding that can nurture them and you know, be patient with them. This is a guy that we brought in and played at left back, remember? I have sympathy for Amrabat. I think he's a better player than people give him credit to. I think he's become a bit of a laughing stock in certain sections of the fan base. But he had no pre-season. He came in at the end of August. We played him at left back. He got injured. There were international breaks. He actually did well against Bayern and Liverpool, like I said. Then he's gone to the AFCON. It's been ridiculously stop-start. Is there a chance that he comes back, stays fit, trains every week, and works himself into the team by March or April? There's always a chance, but I think this will ultimately end up with him going on the loan being terminated. And it has been a failure. And it's a shame because the attributes to his game still remain. His transitional passing into the final third is elite. His tenacity and energy is very, very good. His overall passing is decent. But I always said, even when I wanted us to get him in the summer, it was the best option we had left in August. But I did always say, he's not easy on the eye. And I'm not that sort of bloke. But what I mean is, he's not easy on the eye to watch around the pitch. He has a style of run that isn't, you know, Kante or Rodri or whoever. But I do think there's a better player in there. I just don't think we're going to utilise it. We've now got the real Hwang Hee-chan in the chat. He says, what about me? Yeah, Rashford plus 50 again. Rizik says, morning Mark, trust you well. Are we in for anyone on deadline day on players? None of our summer transfers have really kicked on, says Rizik. Well, I'm very happy with Rasmus. I think Rasmus is still top goal scorer in the Champions League. And he's not getting any service. I mean, it's ridiculous that most of his Premier League goals have been self-generated, i.e. not assisted. I think I was watching Arsenal last night, if you put Rasmus up front for Arsenal, they'd have a better chance of winning the league. I think Tony for Arsenal, Rasmus for Arsenal, even a Calvert-Lewin for Arsenal, if they had a bloody striker up front, they create chances. I think that Rasmus has been a success. It could be a bigger success if we actually played to his strengths. Anan has been a failure so far. Mount's been a failure so far because of injury, and Amrabat, we've spoken about, has been a failure as well. So, yeah, you'd say that, yeah, over 75% of our signings to certainly have been a failure so far. Right, let's move on to this big topic that we're going to discuss now, Rashford, Ten Hag. It's not, I've seen people doing Rashford versus Ten Hag. It's not really what I'm aiming to do here. What I'm aiming to do is ask a question of you whilst talking about a bigger topic. So please do make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. What I want to do is just get that off. Why can't I see the poll? I can't see the poll result. Can somebody tell me what the poll result is in my ear? Wow. Wow. This is amazing. 52% say Rashford will outlast Ten Hag. 48% say Ten Hag will outlast Rashford. This is you don't get this on the radio. You don't get this on any other outlet. This is top quality interaction. 48% saying Ten Hag will last longer than Rashford. 52% saying Rashford will last longer than Ten Hag. Of course, we're talking about how long they'll stay at Manchester United, not drinking games or anything stupid like that. So that's a lot closer than I thought. I personally thought we'd probably be about 70% Rashford, 30% Ten Hag. But it's an interesting one when you think about it, isn't it? Because Marcus Rashford, Manc born and bred, massive new contract. You'd say he's going to be at the club for the rest of his career. He could still break the goal record. Ten Hag as a manager at Man United, no matter what you think about him, average shelf life of a Man United manager since Sir Alex went is probably 2.5 years. So I thought it would be more in favour of Rashford, but I suppose recent events may be dictating that. What I will say is, and it says it on the thumbnail, it's now or never. And I don't think we've realised that. I was driving up to Manchester this morning and I was thinking this. It's now or never. And I think we're locked into lots of different conversations at the moment. But the most important conversation is we've got a new ownership around the footballing side who are doing an ongoing strategic review, who've brought a new CEO in, who want a new director of football, who are looking at the squad and the manager and the coaching and making decisions about the biggest summer that we've had in 20 years. This manager is on thin ice like a lot of players are. this game against Wolves is massive. It's absolutely massive. Yes, we've got West Ham at Old Trafford. I'm not saying I'd expect us to win that. We should win that. But Wolves away ticks all the boxes for a bad United result. We did the preview last night. My prediction was there that it would be a 1-1 draw, but it ticks a lot of boxes for a bad result. Quite simply because Wolves are a decent team who are playing better football than us, who are better organised than us, who are right behind us in the league, and it will be an atmosphere away from home that United don't tend to do well in. You lose this game, you're into the bottom half of the table, 10 losses this season, the pressure ramps up, the call-ins go up, get Ten Hag out, and I don't feel like we're talking about it in that enormity. This game is the start of something, or it could be the beginning of the end of something. You lose it, I think the ramifications are huge. You win it, the momentum is huge. That's why I think we'll draw it, because it's in the middle and we just go and play West Ham in a couple of days. But it is absolutely massive, and it's just not... I do sense that maybe because it's the 2 weeks since Spurs, maybe it's the off-field activity, maybe it's even the Rashford thing, I don't know. But eyes have been taken off the ball by United fans to the enormity of this game. I'm massively looking forward to it, excited about it, but can't predict it. In fact, I would probably say Wolves will be the favourites in it. But I believe in this United side, with the likes of Martinez and Casemiro back and a bit of momentum and a bit of fluidity, we can get a result. But if we do get a result, I don't think we should underestimate the enormity of it. And if we do get beat, I don't think we can hide from the fact how big a defeat it would be, because it will heap intended and, more frankly, deserved pressure onto the manager at a time where the clean sheet will be muddied, in the sense that everything that's gone before, you can almost go injuries, Ineos weren't here, but Ineos are here now. This is the new start. Lose to Wolves. Do they? And, you've got to look at the players as well. I mean, if we did lose to Wolves, you can't just put it on Ten Hag. Ineos would have to be looking at certain players and going, well, they're not up for the fight as well. It's not just Ten Hag on the line here. It is players as well. And I think this feeds into... This does feed into Rashford as well, because I was thinking about this when I was driving up, and I know a lot of people yesterday got very angry about Rashford not being suspended for the Wolves game. But I was thinking, it won't be lost on Ten Hag how big this Wolves game is. And if he suspends Marcus Rashford for this game, and with half an hour to go, Garnacho and Anthony aren't playing well, and he looks at his bench, Palistri's not here anymore, he's only got Ahmad as a winger, he's going to think, I wish I had fucking Marcus Rashford here. And bottom line is, dressing room mentality, manager mentality, it's us against the world. Yeah, I'm going to get a load of stick for putting Rashford on the bench, but I'd rather get a load of stick for putting Rashford on the bench and win that game than get a load of stick for not putting Rashford for putting Rashford on the bench and then lose to Wolves. And I think that's what he's doing. It's about results here. I mean, if you're Pep Guardiola, you're top of the league, you're in the Champions League, it's very easy to say, Cancelo, fuck off. You're not playing. It's a lot harder when you're going into a game like Wolves with the prospect of heading into the bottom half of the table, with new owners scrutinising everything you do. You've got to win. I guarantee you now, if I said to Ten Hag, you can win this game scrappy and Rashford scores the winner, or you can play out a 3-3 thriller without Rashford that everybody says is one of the greatest games the Premier League's ever seen, and you play vintage football, Ten Hag ball, he'd take the 1-0 win. And that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? A 3-3 draw in a Premier League classic where we play Ten Hag ball like he did at Ajax and there's no Rashford, but you get a point, or you play shit and you get 3 points. He'll take the 3 points. It's a results business for Man United. There is no leeway. There is no patience. There is no position of power to just go, I can do this, I can do that. I think Ten Hag's in a weak position, and he needs to get stronger. And I think by having options on the bench, that gives him the opportunity of doing that. Onana will be back, says Kunal. No, he's asking whether Onana will be back. I believe Onana will be back, yes, because I think that he's picked his man, and his man is Erik Ten Hag. No. His man is, he can't put himself in goal. his man is Onana. And I believe that that's the guy he will go with in goal tomorrow. I mean, he's put the travel time in, hasn't he, Onana? And I believe that that's where he'll go. If it was up for debate, I'm sure some people would give Binder a go, but it's the same again, isn't it? I'm sure if you said to Ten Hag, you can win 4-0 and Binder will be brilliant, he'll take it. But he doesn't know whether Binder can deal with it, whereas Onana's his guy. Now, some people would say, well, Onana could... I mean, I haven't forgotten Spurs. Like, he had sellotape feet. You know, he'd glued his feet to the line and it was crap. And Wolves are quite good from corners, so it does worry me a little bit. But do we know enough about Binder to throw him into an away game like that? I don't know. So, yeah, I think 100% Onana will start. I mean, I've done the preview, check it out. But what I wanted to say is that it's going to be a massive game. And I know we always say the next game's the big game, and it always is, and that's the mentality to have. But when you think through the ramifications of tomorrow, if you win that game, you can't say it's only Wolves. Wolves actually should be above us anyway. They've lost about 7 points from VAR this year. Wolves are in a false position. They should be in the top half of the table. They're a good side, Wolves, and if we beat them, we have to acknowledge that's a good result. If we lose to them, we have to acknowledge that that's 10 losses and it ain't looking good, bruv. And that's an honest assessment. We very rarely have these sort of games where they're knife edge games, and I feel that if we lose tomorrow badly, that will be, you know, a big factor in what Ineos are thinking about doing with Ten Hag. Whereas if we win, it buys him more time. I think every game basically for Ten Hag in the Premier League for the next few weeks is going to be on a knife edge. I don't think he's got money in the bank this season. I think Ineos are looking at the situation and going, we're not convinced. You've got to convince us. We're new. We've got our own ideas. We'd like to work with you, but you've got to show us that you're the right person. And we can't work with you from a bad start to the season if that bad start to the season continues. I still think as well, I don't see enough of it in the chat, Mason Mount's got to be a consideration in this story. Like, what are we going to do with Mason Mount? Like, what's Mason Mount's role going to be at Manchester United? I mean, he's going to be back fit soon, and I just don't see where he starts. We talk about the wingers and Rashford, Garnacho, and Anthony and Ahmad. We talk about the midfield having to be Mainu and Casemiro, and sometimes it might be Eriksen or McTominay. Where does Mason Mount fit into this? And I think that's massive as well. So many slippy. I feel like Steven Gerrard. There's so many hazards for Ten Hag. Shane's just gifted a membership. I mean, what if Man United beat Wolves, beat West Ham, Mason Mount comes back, plays them against Villa, and we get beat 4-0? And that's the thing about Ten Hag. We just don't know what his vision is. We could get a good couple of results, and then Mount's back, and he puts him into the starting 11, and we're like we were at the start of the season, getting overrun in the midfield. It's hard to tell, isn't it? I mean, it's interesting what Keen J says. I'd like Mount off the right midfield more often, and I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that myself. But we must remember Mason Mount. Like, he has got the number 7 shirt on. He was a £55 million signing, and he is a player that Ten Hag apparently was obsessed about. So when he's back, surely he comes into the team. Josh says he's Bruno's replacement. Of course he won't be. I agree with Millsy, he's Eriksen's replacement, but that doesn't work. Eriksen, Casemiro and Bruno doesn't work in 2024. So Mount, Bruno and Casemiro, I don't think works. I think it's too much work for the holding midfielder to have Bruno and Mount in your midfield. They're not physically good enough. They're not defensively minded enough. So what do you do? And if you go back to that, I think you get overrun. And I think that there's a lot of teams in the Premier League this season. Wolves were one, even though they didn't beat us. Newcastle were another. Brighton are another. Crystal Palace did it to us as well. There's teams that look at Man United and go, their midfield is so loose, yes, but there's a better word. That midfield is so... I'm trying to think of a word that sort of does it. Not disarray. I think there is a plan. Open. That midfield is so open that you can. If look, Newcastle did it so well. Bruno Guimaraes, Joel Linton, and it might have been Miley. 3 central midfielders, very close together, who work as a unit. And they dominated our midfield, which I think in that game, you've got McTominay hanging about up front, Bruno trying to go forward, Mainu on his own, absolutely dominated. And it's not hard to play Man United at the moment and dominate the midfield because the balance of our midfield isn't right. And you can't judge Mainu and Casemiro on the Newport game, but I'd like to see them play against Wolves tomorrow because I think Mainu will play closer to Casemiro, which I think is going to be fundamental. Imbalanced, yes. I think it's fundamental to Ten Hag staying in his job to have a holding midfielder that's got someone close by to them who knows what they're doing. And Mainu and Casemiro are the best two for that. McTominay can't do it. Eriksen can't do it. Mount and Bruno can't do it. So I think it's fundamental. We're very easy to play against, Akash, exactly. Disjointed, yeah, easy to get through, says Phil Mitchell. Johnny says you can't blame Erik Ten Hag over the Mount injury. Well, remember, he's been injured twice. You can't. The interesting question would be, would we be better in the league if Mount hadn't got injured? Or would we be actually worse? And I don't think that's a question anyone can answer because we don't know it. But also, Bruno's not been injured, so we would have had to play Mount and Bruno for the last few months, which I think would have left us very disjointed. Would we have had more points? Maybe it would have worked. Maybe it needed time. Maybe it would have worked. But I'm still massively confused by that signing, and I don't really understand what it did for us at all. Can I get a check on the poll, please? Still the same. 48% say that 6,000 votes. 52% of you think Rashford will be here longer than Ten Hag, and 48% of you think Ten Hag will be here longer than Rashford. For Rashford to be here longer than Ten Hag just needs to get sacked, and Rashford needs to bounce back. For Ten Hag to be here longer than Rashford, Ten Hag needs to turn this around, starting with Wolves, and be here for a long period of time. I mean, it's a very interesting thing if you're interested in it. Ten Hag could last another year and outlast Rashford if we sell him in the summer. Rashford could outlast Ten Hag by just being here next season and Ten Hag gets sacked in the summer. Also, Ten Hag could be here for the next 15 years and outlast Rashford, who stays here for another 5 years. Also, Ten Hag could be successful for 5 years and then go and manage Barcelona, and Rashford could be here for 7 years. I'd take those two latter ones over the others, to be honest with you. Mark says, I hope that Sir David and Sir Jim stick to the word and let go of poor performance. That includes players with bad attitudes and professionalism. I'll pray to that, Mark. I really, really will. Thanks everyone for tuning in this morning. Nice to be in the studio. Make sure you smash a like on the video for us. We're back at lunchtime for the reaction to the press conference. It's going to be an interesting one because Ten Hag will get questions about a certain number 10. Whether he'll answer them in any detailed way is up for grabs. He's probably just going to say it's under the carpet, it's been dealt with, but it will be interesting to see what he's got to say. It'd be nice to get some injury updates on where Lindelof is, where Mason Mount is as well. Join us for that at lunchtime. I'm back at 7 o'clock on here as well tonight, and it's a massive game tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. I will speak to you soon.